Hey, Jan here, and what I'm going to be talking about in today's video is how to hire Chief Marketing Officer, CMO, Head of Marketing, Head of E-commerce for your furniture business. And this is something that we do have quite a bit of experience in because we've been working with furniture businesses for a while at this point. We manage multiple eight figures in advertising spend, providing online marketing services, consultancy services for furniture companies. And you really need to make sure that if you're hiring a chief marketing officer, that you're doing it the right way. Because if you aren't doing it the right way, it's something that is going to result in a lot of issues later down the line. Because specifically with these more senior positions, it takes quite a bit to actually be able to assess things because most of them, they're going to be fairly good at doing the interview. They're going to be quite convincing. They're going to come across as confident. They are going to have a pretty decent track record, most likely as well. But at the end of the day, it is something where it takes a pretty long time to actually figure out if someone is good or not. And then you're losing all this process because there's very high switching costs from this kind of employees because it's knowledge work. They have to understand the specifics of your company. They have to understand the position within the company. There's a bunch of different things that they're going to have to understand. They have to start getting along well with the team. They have to understand the culture. All of these different things that they basically do have to cover. And there's general saying in the recruitment space, which is that the cost of hiring the wrong person is like there's some number for it, I forgot, but it was a really high number, like six figures probably. And specifically with those senior positions that you want to delegate a lot of responsibility with for your leadership team, you are going to run into problems potentially because it takes quite a long time to actually figure out if that person is competent or not. And there's a bunch of different challenges with this because the talent pool, specifically if your business is mainly digital, it's not massive just because the digital field specifically, it's not something that has a lot of history. But the other thing is that they're inherently rare if they're great. So if you're looking at someone who generally should have experience in your specific industry and be very intelligent, it becomes very, very tricky to find the right person. And another thing to consider with this is that there's three specific archetypes. You actually have to understand who you want. And obviously, intelligence, industry experience, good track record, those things matter. I'm not saying they don't. But in general, there's three specific archetypes. There's the data guy, the guy who makes sure the data is being understood very properly. There's a creative iconoclast or whatever you want to call it. So they're just very creative, innovative person that comes up with very novel ideas on regards to how to position your brand, very novel marketing messages. And then there's the follow through guy. Let's just call it that. So it's basically a person who makes sure that the implementation is good. And in general, this is something that is very proven to exist. There's something called the call personality inventory, where they measure people's so-called cognitive strengths. And that's something that has been shown to have scientific validity. I'm personally good friends with a psychologist who really believes in these tests. It's something that's generally used by psychologists as well, just because they're actually reliable. With these personality tests in general, there's a lot of tests that aren't actually having that much utility in a sense that A, they're too black and white, but then also B, they're not really consistent with people. So for example, there's the Myers-Briggs personality inventory, right? Super popular, 16 personalities, whatever it may be called. And no proper psychologist actually uses this. The reason why they don't actually use it is because, well, it's not actually reliable and it doesn't allow you to judge someone's personality. The same thing goes for this green people, blue people, etc., etc. It just is not something that's very real or just way too black and white, even though it may be based off something that's actually real. And if you look at the cognitive strengths, it's going to show you very clearly there's fact finders, people who really like to dig into data. They like to understand things. They want to make sure that their decisions are right. They're creative people, quick starters, essentially, that just like trying a lot of new stuff and coming up with new ideas. And then there's also follow through, right? So people who are sure that the implementation is being done properly. So the thing with that is you kind of need all of those things, though, if you really think about it. You need a data guy, you need a creative guy, and you need someone who makes sure the follow through is right. So how do you actually solve this problem? Because in general, you can't have that in one person. This one person is naturally going to have blind spots. There's genetic components with this as well. So they can't just be overcome by talking to the person. In a lot of cases, sometimes they can be, right? Never say never, but it's just very restricted. So how do you actually solve this? Basically, there's two different things. You can increase the size of the talent pool by loosening the criteria that you're having. For example, if you need someone to be in an office, maybe you can look at remote options for that, just because locally, depending on the city you live in, but most of the time, and obviously how well your company is positioned in terms of employer branding, et cetera. But most of the time, the talent pool in your specific region may just simply be too small to find someone who's qualified. So here, it does make sense to look into doing it remotely or to remove the bias. And in order to remove the bias, there's basically two different things. Option one is you can give that person a sparring partner who has different strengths. So for example, if you have someone who's very high on creativity, it does make sense to create some friction by bringing on a consultant who is going to aid that person on follow through, and it's going to balance out their natural weaknesses or at least cover their blind spots in the areas that actually matter. And that's one solution. The second solution is instead to hire an external provider who doesn't have a bias in the first place. So what do I mean by this? If you look at an organization can have a vast variety of people. They can have people who are very creative. They can have people who are very good at reading data. And they can have people who are very good at implementing things, making sure things get done, managing a team, those kind of things. For example, in our case, we're creative because we know exactly what is working and what doesn't in the industry, as well as we have a lot of marketing experience, and we do have creative staff that whose main work and tasks are to come up with new ideas for clients. We have people that are very data driven who have as one of their main responsibilities to make sure to, for example, read a client inaccuracy, develop tracking models, making sure everything's as accurate as possible and all of the decisions make as much sense as possible. But then on the other hand, we also have people who are sure that things are actually happening. We have benchmarks for example, in the media buying context, that a specific amount of campaigns are being launched, that a specific amount of outcomes that are key for the end result are being achieved. And that is because it's an organization and not a specific person. So it can be less biased. So if you're interested in learning about how this could be implemented, whether you want to bring on a sparring partner or explore the option of just completely delegating this and outsourcing the entire chief marketing officer position, just head over to furniture-scale.com and apply for a free consultation there. If you think we can help you, we're going to develop a specific plan in regards to how to optimize these specific variables that I talked about in this video. And that's pretty much it. So looking forward to seeing you in the next video or on that call. Bye bye.